Alrighty then, today's video is a rather informal one. I have no script and I'm mostly just rambling. Anyhow, one of my favorite things to do in League of Legends is to watch LCS and Worlds specifically to see which junglers are being played. I don't actually sometimes watch the entire match, I just want to pick the picking phase and check out the junglers and see what they do in the early game just to sort of get an idea. Anyhow, in this world, you can already tell that certain junglers have sort of fallen off the grace of the earth, mostly because they've been nerfed. Gragas, for instance, is pretty much just kind of gone. And you saw some occasional picks of champions like Hecarim, Skarner, and the return of Lee Sin. I think he got a buff a little while back. But yeah, Lee Sin is pretty much back in full force. And of course, the usual staples of Rek'Sai, Elise, Olaf, and that kind of situation. Now, everyone should have expected to see someone like Nidalee because no matter how many times you nerf her, she's going to be that queen bitch of control, and she's ridiculously strong as a jungler to the point where she kind of just drowned out a bunch of other champions. So yeah, until Riot just kicks her out of the jungle, she's never going to really leave. Rek'Sai is right now your standard phase. She's got a lot of power, or a lot of control power, and it's just kind of, above average in a lot of aspects. So she's got that going for her, and obviously no cooldown. No, I mean only pure cooldowns, no mana restrictions or that kind of stuff. So pretty strong jungler. Although if you see the the times she's been all the champions have been picked, she's at the lowest amongst all the picked junglers right now, or mass picked junglers. So it's kind of leading me to my next point. Next ones are Olaf, Elise, and Lee Sin. Now, Elise has always been a sort of staple for high competitive because she's a champion that is just very well built for the jungle. There's no real way to sort of shut her down, and she can fit anywhere, right? You can just put Elise in a team that needs more crowd control, or needs to pick someone off, or needs some sort of assassination things, or whatever. She's basically a safe pick, and she doesn't ever really put herself in danger unless she really needs to, and there's no real phase in which she's completely useless, although she does transition from what her best powers or her best uses are in every phase, early, mid, and late game. So there's that. So most teams are most competitive players and most expert junglers know what they're supposed to do as Elise, so that's not really a problem for these teams. Now, Olaf, I'll save him for the end because he's kind of one of my favorite manly junglers to play every now and then, and you guys know what I do that. But Lee Sin is the interesting one for a lot of people. Lee Sin is always been like the staple for competitive players, but always been a sort of a junkie for solo queue, especially after he got nerfed down. Mostly, Lee Sin is just the miracle boy. Now, I want to use a sort of analogy of him in old-timey war. In old-timey war, back, swords and spears and shit, and bronze and iron, the shield wall was what pretty much everyone did in their own phases. Shield wall is where you and a bunch of homies stood next to each other and like a line, not in front of each other, but side to side, and just held up your defenses and just stabbed at each other until one line broke through, and that's it, you won. Basically, it's some of the basic maneuvers most people practiced, and the idea is that when you just fought against each other, the better one would eventually win in that kind of situation. Whoever had the most numbers or whatever, or sometimes whoever got lucky. So sometimes in a situation like that, you got to come up with a wonder strategy, or you got to throw some curveball or pull off some bullshit that no one saw coming, not even your own homies. And Lee Sin is the type of champion to do that. Like, he's one of the few champions that has such incredible maneuverability in just a small area, and kind of like he can make magic happen, as you've seen. I remember, I think it was either Worlds 1 or Worlds 2, where Lee Sin won a competitive match by throwing his little Hadouken on Urgot, and the Urgot panicked. And I know Urgot was being played. Urgot panicked and flashed, but Lee Sin used his kick as he did that, so it dragged him to the Urgot, then he ward hopped to a certain direction and flashed and kicked the enemy Corki into his team, who instantly got nuked. And that just snowballed the rest of that fight and won the game. It was just like, a holy shit, it came from nowhere, and you've seen it happen plenty of times. So Lee Sin, whether he's strong or good or not, it's just because he's a champion that can make crazy ass plays happen. But you got two teams that are playing at the highest level who know every little strategy, you basically got to pull some shit out of your ass, or else it's going to become a stalemate, and it's going to be whoever gets lucky at some point, because it's just one small mistake happens. And yeah, Lee Sin is that risky play because come end game you might not do anything. But these are the types of players who want to go all in when when it all matters. So hooray for Lee Sin. He's one of my favorite champions to watch play because the great Lee Sin players are going to pull off some crazy stunts. Even the ones who end up losing, they probably ended up putting up such a good show. So that's fun to watch. And now Olaf, he's basically mostly because his ultimate, I've said before, is one of the most powerful ultimates in the game. It's just the anti-bullshit. It's like, oh, you got all this CC, you got all these champions that are going to knock everyone about. I'm going to ignore that, kill your most important player, and just be done with it. You've seen right now champions like Kennen, Poppy, and Rumble and shit like that. Or, just... or pretty much anything like Cassiopeia and Syndra, shit that knock everyone about and will slow your ability to murder someone. Olaf, click R, just run in there, ignore it all, and force them to aggro you or attack you, and hopefully you slaughter whoever's important and just kind of win off that. So he's like the ultimate counterpick to a lot of the champions that are being played right now. Plus, he's pretty damn good, and especially if he snowballs. Though I know it's not the jungle, but I am kind of super surprised at some of the very colorful picks we're seeing right now. Mostly a lot of champions that set up plays. Again, it kind of helps give credit to Lee Sin, even though it's not the jungle, but seeing champions like Kennen, Rumble, and stuff, champions that can't really absolutely kill off somebody by themselves, unless, you're Kennen and you get an entire team, a really well-timed ultimate, like that one thing we saw. They can make plays happen and change the flow of battle, and just surprise, you're all dead kind of situations. So hooray for Lee Sin. And and then you'll see champions like Hecarim, Skarner, and that one. That was what I was going to lead up to in the end. So Hecarim and Skarner were also played a bit, and I think some other junglers were played a bit too, but mostly just this little circle. There are also the types of champions that are going to be by pure surprise. If you pick any of them, you already set yourself up for a lot of weaknesses. Hecarim is the snowball champion premier. Like, if I've gone on and said Hecarim is the champion that snowballs the hardest out of any jungler in the game, because with every level, his damage ramps up considerably. If he gets itemized, he becomes unkillable while also initiating and bringing up explosive damage. So if he fucks people up in the early game or maintains an adequate level of farm and, if it maintains adequate levels of in comparison to his opponents and whatnot, he'll be strong and he can destroy people. I didn't actually finish that match, so I don't know if he actually won, but there you go. And Skarner is kind of the same situation too. He snowballs like crazy. In terms of the jungle, he's kind of unbeatable if he's in his little blue aura, and his own jungle is ridiculously safe in his own blue aura, so he's not gonna get crushed. It's mostly when it comes to team fights and certain champions that kind of run circles around him, but sort of like if you pick into a situation in which the enemy was in no way prepared for Skarner, then you're going to fuck them so hard in the ass they're going to bleed for days. Pretty much that's how Skarner works. And like I said, in worlds when everyone's playing at their finest, or you gotta bring out the surprise picks. You gotta bring out the magic and just hope for the best, because the same strategies that would work on everyone else who's been practicing those strategies are not gonna get very far. So just, again, think of everything like an old-timey battles. You got to pull off a flank. You got to pull off a miracle. You got to introduce a whole new weapon. You got to, fight dirty if you have to. So, hooray. And, of course, this really works out against teams that are not really, that are new to the scene, because they were likely practicing the only average strategy, so they're not going to be prepared for all the new good ones. Anyways, this is a ranty video, but hey, I actually really do like Worlds, and I really do like watching new jungle picks. So here's hoping we see more Lee Sin magic or other things. Hooray. I also do have to say, it's just early Worlds, so we might even see some more magical champions later on in the tournament, when more people are starting to either get super desperate because they're about to, get destroyed, or they're at the very end and it's time to pull out the big guns. So that's where I get really excited. I personally feel the teams are going to start busting out more well-rounded champions, or more new, quote-unquote, new Graguses like Zac and such. So here's hoping, right? It's about time Zac makes it back to Worlds in a big way.